technical difficulties, but we are back. Um, and what we were talking about there was we forgot. But we're talking a little bit about spirituality in the path. So, how we all get here and where that's about. And, I guess we all get here through wanting something different. So that's why we're here. Let's talk about this a little bit. You have on here that you do quantum rebirthing. What is that, Dan?
Yeah, so it's my flavor of rebirthing breathwork. So rebirthing breathwork is a modality that was accidentally discovered by a beautiful human being, one of the most enlightened masters I've ever got to spend time with, a man named Leonard Orr. He was really into yoga in the 60s and pranayama, and he was laying fully in his hot tub, practicing breathing exercise, and he accidentally found this rhythmic circular breathing, and he took himself through his birth experience. He regressed his into his consciousness, and in that experience he activated and opened and healed his birth trauma that was still being stored with him. And so when we get to a process to be able to really release that trauma from our body, it awakens us deeply spiritually because it's energetic freedom. And so he spent the next few years really mastering the craft, and created this modality called rebirthing. Was majorly huge in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And a lot of the modalities out there being taught right now have many, many different names, but they're all circular connected breath. It's all rebirthing breath work, and then like Stan Groff, who created holotropic breath work, which is virtually the same style of breathing, just adding different elements, But Stan Groff was a genius, and he was a man in the 60s who was in the universities was experimenting with psychedelics and psilocybin. And when the government put a stop to that, his passion became studying altered states of consciousness without substances. And
Mm-hmm.
so he developed the holotropic breathwork method and transpersonal psychology and all of that. And yeah, highly recommend reading his material, and getting into that. It's really beautiful, and it's almost, he was ahead of his time. He basically created a genre of psychology that is for us right now.
Right.
And through the process of being held and supported safely in a rhythmic breathwork process, we in essence we're resetting the nervous system. Usually there's some turbulence that comes up in the first part of the session. This is where people are going to be screaming, laughing, crying, moving all of those repressed emotions. And once we clear that and open the channel of breath,
Mm-hmm.
open, and free our breathing mechanisms, the ability to explore our deeper mind, our higher mind, our consciousness is profound. And oftentimes people through this style of breath work, it's like they're like, I've done all sorts of psychedelics, and this was the most psychedelic
Yeah.
experience I've ever had.
It definitely
And
can be, right? It definitely can be. And there's people out there like Joe Dispenza and Vin Hoff. These are pretty new age guys right now that are showing this.
Mhm.
People should be informed about that. Do you know anybody else out there doing these kind of breath works that we can inform people about and tell people about to watch? I kind of like Joe Dispenza myself. I learned a lot from him, how he does his techniques. So
To be honest, breathwork is popping up all over the place.
it is, isn't it?
It's like, I'm sure you can find something, as far as like maybe a bigger name. I don't. I'm kind of a bit of a hermit, so I
Yeah.
don't know a lot of what's going on in the popular world. I kind of stick to what I know and in my own studies and practices. But yeah, find a rebirthing breathwork facilitator or a holotropic breathwork facilitator near you, and go from there. It's if you're in Austin, Texas, definitely give me a call. We can set
Give
up some
you. Yeah, we
sessions.
got you down there. We were talking about before we got disconnected there a little bit about education in this platform and communities and how everybody's trying to be this and that. And, I think collaboration is a pretty big thing right now. I think some ethical alignment with a lot of people and start collaborating because we are on this baseline of this medicine and the education is the key. I do believe the education is the key. And this is what we need right now. So,
yeah.
It's definitely so much healing to these medicines, all these modalities. And, I think the more information people get, the more they will trust this process, and trust in this process. You are an integration coach also, correct?
Yeah, definitely work in that realm as well.
Yeah. And that's something that a lot of people won't kind of get a grasp on. What do you say? What do you, when people ask you, what is integration to you?
Yeah, it's a broad question, and it's a term that's being tossed around very loosely right now.
Very loosely, isn't it?
And so for me, it's like integration can take many shapes. I think the first thing we need to define is, what is the person coming for? Are they coming for specifics in healing trauma? Well, that person's integration process probably needs somatic therapy, a little bit more of a counseling approach and a body approach and a bodywork approach to continue to move the traumas from the body. Now, if someone's coming for, more of a spiritual exploration, the integration modality should definitely be one of spiritual initiation and teaching consciousness and the structures of mind and how to navigate through the inner realms and that. And it's there's so much, so many angles. And so it's again, it's kind of what I see in the culture is like integration is kind of being this one-stop shop, maybe kind of cookie cutter approach, but it's like, man, I have to take a different approach for every single person that comes into my space,
Right.
and really, and again, and there's also very beneficial way, a lot of benefits from a little bit more of a, here is a specific structure that can universally help anyone plug into that. It's for me, I don't, as with practicing in many different realms and serving medicine myself, I don't always have as much availability for the integration as I'd like. So I did craft a really beautiful integration structure that is a self-guided course of study that's, at least it's giving somebody a way to really take themselves through a process. And also because you have many people out there that aren't going to find a coach and do that process, but are still looking for something a little bit more that they can dance with on at their own terms and that. And so, the Plant Medicine Life Mastery course is I'm going to be launching it in a week or two, which is going to be available. And another resource for people to really, learn what to do with their experience. And also we touch a lot on what to look for, how to find the right facilitator and all that stuff too. So
What to do with your experience, right? I mean, there's a lot of these facilities and these churches out there that, what do people do with their experience? Most of these send them out to the streets once they have their experience, and people don't understand, man, there's a process to that. That can be real dangerous, sending people just out to the streets, because you just went through some mind altering consciousness that you have to really figure out and sit with for a while. Some people go to work that following day. So, there's a lot of education to be had here, especially in that area for sure.
yeah. And then, we can get into all sorts of the energetic hygienes of that.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
it's and that's why, my retreats are always Thursday to Monday. There's a full day of landing in the space and a day of landing the process. And to me, that and turning the phones off and getting into nature. And to me, those subtle little aspects, from my perspective, what I see is often the medicine the person really needed, and um yeah, it's this kind of McDonald's culture that is infiltrated all of our Western minds of we want it
Hmm.
now and we want it done and we want it,
Yeah,
and so it's we've been almost trained to expect not good product, as well, because we're getting it here and now, and so it's for
here and now.
me the commitment to this work and what I tell everyone. I'm like, you're signing up for the potential of changing your life completely and dramatically in incredible ways. Take your time making this decision, sit with it. Ask me everything that you could possibly ask me. Give me, and I will give you every detail that I can. And we're going to sit with it. We're going to land it. We're going to process it. And obviously we can't do that in one day, but it's to me, it's just important to have and keep the container together, and
Right.
everybody land that process together, and I found doing it in that way produces greater results,
Hmm.
and so it's a little bit more of a commitment, and that's okay,
Right.
there's many
And
routes.
a lot of this is being uncomfortable. I mean, I feel for myself, I mean, uncomfortability is where, you need to dive into. When you're uncomfortable, you have to understand this is where you have to go. You want to dive into those uncomfortable feelings. So,
Hmm.
we're so trained, like you say, to stay away from that discomfort when we really need to dive into that discomfort a lot more, because that's where the healing starts. That's really where it is, because there's a reason you don't want to jump into that space. So fucking jump into there. See what it's about. Don't be scared, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and I don't even think we need to say don't be scared. I take more of a, oh, you're scared, cool, do it anyway approach,
That's a
and
good way to look at it. Yeah.
yeah, really embrace it.
Hmm.
I had a gentleman, who's hopped on another call with me today, who's been kind of back and forth, and he's just like flat out, man, I'm terrified. I'm like, I know, I've been waiting for you to admit that,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
like, that's okay, and it's expected.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
the when we're about to step into deeply transformational experiences, our soul, our higher mind knows what's going to happen, and then the ego is responding to that like, no, don't, no, I'm going to have to do work, and
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's all an unconscious cycle running out, and
Right.
it's like, I encourage more people to just like, oh, I'm scared, and yeah, someone just mentioned I'm still terrified every time, and it's like, I don't know if I would use the word terrified for myself anymore, but like it's like the energies are high,
Yeah.
even in from every session, and to me it's not necessarily scared or terrified anymore. It's like, for me it's like, what is the mystery going to bring
Mm.
tonight,
Yeah.
and so it's almost this level of excitement, and
Hmm.
in that, which excitement and fear are very closely related, and so
Very.
it's um and it's like, yeah, when I go sit just for myself, and not holding space, yeah, it's like, all right, what's gonna happen, what we
Right.
working on tonight,
Right.
and there's a bit
Yeah.
of sometimes some trepidation still, and
I
that's
always look,
okay.
I always look forward to the Monday, to see, okay, now this is what I got to work on for the next 6 months. So,
Uh,
it's always good, because we all, society's looking for something. And it's really getting gratifying to see that people are looking towards this option, because I
mhm.
think it's been stigmatized for a really long time. And I think with the studies coming out with Stanford and John Hopkins and all these other facilities, it just makes it more legitimate. And having people like you on and the other people we have on, this information's getting out there, and it's just making this, I hate to use the word mainstream, but it's making it more educated. People are becoming more educated, and that's what we need.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So I appreciate your time tonight, my friend. Sorry
Yeah.
about the little communication error, but we fixed that, and we'll go from there. If anybody wants to reach out, why don't you talk about Danny? Why don't you tell them where they can reach out to?
Yeah. So I don't have the most presence online, but through my Facebook, Innate Alchemy is the name of my business on Facebook. On Instagram, definitely reach out through that. I'll hop on the in the plant medicine path and throw links to everything that way as well. And yeah, definitely reach out. The many opportunities and ways to work with me. And if you're interested in the breathwork stuff as well, I do hold multiple facilitator trainings a year as well that are pretty immersive, intensive, and yeah, great way to start your path as a healer and a great addition to your path as a space holder, healer, facilitator, whatever that may be.
Love that. And for a guy that calls himself a hermit, man, you sure are getting a lot of stuff out there. And I'd like to put your workshops on coming up in the near future because I see you as a very informative guy. You've been on this path for a while. You're very ethical, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you,
Thanks,
thank you, thank you, thank
thanks
you.
tonight, brother. Thanks.
Yeah,
Much love and love you, man.
I had fun. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Ciao.